Embry, we need your video. Oh, okay.
Handsome video, less handsome video, we'll take either one.
It's 5 o'clock. I'd like to call the work session of the Isabella County Board of Commissioners to order. And join me in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, a roll call, please.
Here.
Embry.
Here.
Commissioner Jalzinski,
Here.
Commissioner Engler, Commissioner Marino, Commissioner Swaney, Commissioner Hope. All present, Mr. Chairman, except for Commissioner Engler.
Clerk, Commissioner Engler did call me this afternoon. He's ill.
He is on the screen.
On the Zoom. Up next would be approval of the agenda. We will start the meeting with general public comments. We don't have any presentations or special reports, no appointments. Brings us down to committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee.
Finance Administration Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Criminal Justice and County Affairs is all set, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Human Resources and Public Works Committee is all set, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We have no intergovernmental affairs, no administrator controller issues, no unfinished business or new business. We'll have general public comment again toward the end of the meeting, and then announcements from commissioners and then adjournment. So with that, is there a motion to approve? We do need one item removed.
All right.
Item 3 under Human Resources and Public Works. If someone wants to remove that item.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we remove item 3 under Human Resources and Public Works dealing with the Fisher Annex lease for Deerfield Nature Park from the agenda.
Support.
Been moved and supported to remove item 3, Human Resources and Public Works. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So move. Support.
Supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And before we move into general public comment, I just want to say a couple things. I want to make clear that none of us here wanted to be in this position that we're currently in, where we're laying off men and women who go out and risk their lives every day to keep us safe. I want to thank a couple people that worked really hard on the millage effort. Zach Ferrier and Lee Clark. And of course, Sheriff Maine. The sheriff as an employee couldn't say vote yes, but he was out there educating people. He was at every meeting. He was tirelessly out there. I don't think there's anything more he could have done. Keep in mind also, tonight we're going to be looking at some initial steps to bond for the rebuilding of the administration building. Keep in mind on that we're not spending cash on that building. We're borrowing money because we don't have the cash. So, general public comment is your chance to make a statement to the board. It's not a conversation with the board. Commissioners typically don't respond immediately. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. And we can as per our bylaws, limit discussion on any one item to 15 minutes. I'm not going to do that. I've never done it before. But we do have a meeting to run eventually. So with that in mind, anyone for general public comment?
Evening. What I want to start by saying is it was just pointed out that Sheriff Maine could not verbally support the proposal that was going forward. And I believe what you're looking for is campaign finance. That would be the very reason that commissioners on this board also do not support a candidate when they are working in their capacity on the board. My name is Bree Mogenberg. I am an Isabella County resident, a taxpayer, and a business owner. I am not an elected official, and unlike the government, I am guaranteed rights and protection by the U.S. Constitution. On October 15th, I sat before this board at the right time in the right place, and I expressed concerns regarding commissioners and potential violations of county policy and campaign finance law. During that meeting and since that meeting, I and my cohorts have been spoken down upon for expressing concern. Let me be clear. It is unbecoming and by no means acceptable of an elected official to speak down upon taxpayers that not only pay for their position, but also present and respectfully include sourced information. For this and other reasons, I would personally like to request the retraction of elected official statements as well as disorderly business conducted during taxpayer meetings of this board. My concerns are as follows. On October 25th, District 3 Commissioner Jerry Jalazinski in the Morning Sun guest column wrote an article directly addressing my name, Bree Mogenberg. This article was not only harassing and falsely accusatory, but I've been harassed by others due to this article. This article was received by many citizens to be a threat to all that made comments during a public meeting. At the work session on October 15th, he labeled those that spoke up as Bree's cohorts, and this statement is false and accusatory. He broke board protocols and spoke on public comment and directly addressed me. He actually directly references such protocol in the Morning Sun guest column. My request for potential resolve due to misconduct and taxpayer disregard. Number one, Jerry Jalazinski resigns, and the efforts that he resigns, we also would not have to spend taxpayer dollars on a potential recall in the case that he does not. The chairman of this board gavels down commissioners that are out of order and speaking against board policy. The chairman of this board removes Mr. Jalazinski from the finance committee. Please note that I am not making an accusation, but at this time I'm bringing up a concern of potential as a past county employee that if he receives county pension, that this could pose a direct conflict of interest on the finance committee. Number four, with the upcoming board election for chair and vice chair, this board declines to support Mr. Jalazinski in either position. And number five, the board censures Mr. Jerry Jalazinski for violating board policy and harassing taxpayers while cloaking himself in his capacity as a county commissioner, and also is seen in the November 5th meeting. In the case that suit is filed due to threatening libel against a private citizen by an elected official for false accusations of defamation, defamation by implication, defamation pro quo, defamation per se, this board does not reimburse his legal expense outside the scope and authority as a county commissioner. And as a taxpayer, myself and others need to feel safe to express our concern. I hope that an apology and a retraction is not only sent forth to me personally, but to all the readers and citizens that felt harassed and intimidated to speak up. As the people share tonight their peaceful complaints, thoughts, and frustrations, may your eyes and ears be open to resolve. And I had given the clerk to be passed forward some concerns of direct statements that were made in the capacity as a citizen, but cloaking himself as the government with the October 25th Morning Sun article. Thank you very much.
Anyone else for general public comment?
My name is Lauren Nicholson. I would like to thank you for your time. I, as well as Connie, are community managers for a mobile home park here in town that is greatly serviced by the Isabella County Sheriff's Department. When I came and took over this community, it was very high rate, a lot of drugs, a lot of violence, vandalism. And it wasn't until the Sheriff's Department stepped in and helped us and heard our frustration did we get where we needed to be. We now have an established neighborhood watch and an immense relationship with the Isabella County Sheriff's Department. It would not be, if it were not for them, we wouldn't be where we are. Our crime has gone down by 95% because of them. We are here begging you to please reconsider and find some type of funding. If you can borrow it for a building, you can borrow it to save these sheriffs. They're worth it.
We need it. If you read what they do, gun violence, knife violence, Mount Pleasant is turning in to a very, very, very scary place. Please find it somewhere. I don't care. Make a deal with the devil. Save the sheriff's department, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you sign in for us, ma'am? Just kind of sign in sheet. Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Julie Rucker, and I reside in Isabella County. I actually wrote something out, but I need to go off a little bit. You just spoke about a loan that we're getting out for the building. If it's a loan, it is cash. So eventually, it's gonna come out of our pockets. Because if that type of loan you can get that isn't cash, I want one, because I could pay everything off that I owe. But this is where I'm at. Sitting here tonight, I feel like a measly peasant that has a government robbing me of not only food, but now our safety. It feels as if a dictatorship has taken control to rule over the money of the peasants and a government kingdom reformed as Isabella County. Our money has been overspent, and now you are requesting more to fix your mistakes. It's not that you fix your mistakes with what I need you to do is fix your mistakes with what you have. Unless I'm mistaken, the revolving fund is an option, and you could pull that back into the budget. And unless I'm mistaken on this one, money including, and I'm sorry, it's nothing against HATS or the MSU extension, but they are not requirements. And I believe that we're helping them there too financially, putting that above our community safety. You need to fix this. You can't, you have to stop seeking more money, and you have to correct the mistakes. But I just can't believe the comment about the loan. I wonder why we're sitting here. Because that is our cash. And every time we turn around, you want something more. You know, we're just people trying to make a living. 4 years ago, Sheriff Maine, I heard him speak somewhere, and we don't ever even pay our police, our sheriff, an adequate amount of money. Like, you can't bring in new hires with what we're offering. So that's been going on, and that's been a concern for years. I just don't understand how that has never been fixed. But yet, we're gonna fix an entire building that only had a small problem. I guess that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Karen Jensen. I moved to Isabella County in 2022 on the west side of the county, far out there. And I appreciate everything about Isabella County. The people are great. The landscape is great. It's just a wonderful place to live. And I had an extraordinarily traumatic thing happen earlier this year where my son came home from school and had just gotten off the bus We sat in my dining room to have a conversation about the day, and a situation unfolded in my driveway involving a suicidal man. And we called 911, and I ended up in the driveway with the suicidal man. My son was on the phone with 911, watching this thing unfold. Sheriff Maine showed up with his crew. I couldn't see what was happening, but my son he was watching the whole thing. And I have to say, this was an incredibly traumatic thing for me and my son. But what he came away with was the level of professionalism of Sheriff Maine in his organization. Not only did he save a life, but he got the confidence of a very young, vulnerable boy who was just, he could have been wrecked by this. But the fact that the sheriff just handled this thing so gracefully and respectfully was a pretty transformative experience for him instead of a traumatic experience. I could not have asked for more as a taxpayer. It breaks my heart that I have lost both my safety net and a security blanket for my new home. Thank you.
Before I speak for myself and address the board, I would just like to say, well, my name is Lee Clark, and I was the chairperson of the Friends of Isabella County. We were a small group of concerned citizens who fought for the passing of this proposal. These committee members dedicated countless hours attending township meetings, placing signs, talking to citizens, and battling misinformation on social media. I want to thank each and every one of the committee members for their time and their talents. They were all amazing. Putting on my other hat, my name is Lee Clark, and I've been a resident of Lincoln Township for the past 19 years. I'm also the wife of soon-to-be former Detective Sergeant Scott Clark from the Isabella County Sheriff's Office. Well over a year ago, when my husband mentioned to me that our county and sheriff's office might find themselves with the same fate as Montcalm County, I didn't believe it. I brushed it off. I thought surely our county officials would learn from the mistakes of others and not put us in the same position. I had blind faith in my county leaders. Boy, was I proven wrong. The rampant spending and the lack of foresight by this administrator and board, as well as the previous administrator and board, which many of you sat on, has now resulted in 16 deputies and their families being collateral damage. These past 2 weeks have been hell for my family. We're going through the stages of grief because this is a huge loss. Not only financially, but emotionally. My heart breaks for my husband, who has dedicated 27 years of his career, working nights, weekends, holidays, in blizzards, tornadoes, and pandemics. He's been spat on, thrown down flights of stairs, and punched in the face. All while wearing the Isabella County badge. And the thanks he gets. Getting laid off from the employer where he spent his entire career, 5 years shy of retirement. He and 15 other deputies and their families tossed aside like garbage, like they never even mattered. We've learned that the once essential workers are not so essential after all. On a broader scope, I worry for my fellow county residents. A friend of ours' daughter hit a deer the other day and totaled her car. When she called dispatch, she was told that 16 calls were holding in front of her. and that it would take 3 hours or more until someone could respond. Thankfully, she was not injured, and this was a low priority call, but it made me wonder what other calls were holding in front of hers. From the results of the election, it is crystal clear that the voters have lost all trust in this board. They have had it with how this administrator and board members have continued to spend money that we do not have. The money has been spent or allocated for other things deemed to be more important, and at this point, there's no going back to fix it. It's water under the bridge. All we can do is figure out a way forward. You all have an enormous mountain to climb. You must reestablish trust with the voters by being open and transparent, by taking the extra time to explain things in layman's terms so that regular, everyday people understand. You must communicate with the people of this county and do it often across all media channels. When the time comes that the county wants the sheriff's office back, it will take years of planning. My suggestion to you is to budget for and hire a PR firm to help drive the narrative and to combat all of the misinformation that takes over during an election. This is a wake-up call and a call to every taxpayer in Isabella County. We must inspect what we expect. If we expect our elected officials to spend our tax dollars wisely, we must inspect their work. We must attend committee meetings, especially finance committee meetings, and we must ask questions and challenge the process. It is up to every one of us. Thank you.
My name is Susan Sunderman. I've been a resident of Isabella County for 31 years. This is a community demanding our right to safety be reinstated. Isabella County is not the Wild West. We aren't going to curl up in a ball and accept our fate. People want security. They want to feel like their life is built on a solid foundation that won't collapse under them should something happen. Public safety is a cornerstone in just such a foundation. There's right and there's wrong. This entire process is wrong. No dedicated countywide public safety is wrong. You letting your constituents fend for themselves is wrong. Leaving schools vulnerable is wrong. Having our sheriff's deputies be on the receiving end of the community's disdain and punishment toward you is wrong. The big names, big money, big lies, vote no group is wrong. Sacrificing our community's safety in order to line their pockets is outrageous and dangerous. We deserve and we demand better.
Good evening, commissioners. Most of you may know me, and as do some of the residents here in the crowd as well. For those of you who don't, my name is Brent Fisher, a lifelong resident of Isabella County. I sit before you as a frustrated taxpayer, to say the least. Our county has fallen into some serious financial issues as a result of poor decision-making over numerous years. And that poor decision-making process seems to be continuing. The latest result of such decisions is the inability to provide funding to keep our sheriff deputies employed. The residents of this county fully support law enforcement. However, the same residents don't support the way taxpayer dollars are being spent. So instead of the people that have made such decisions As those that got us here being held accountable, the deputies have had to seek employment in other departments, in other counties, and in other towns. And as a result, my guess that some may have to relocate their families at some point if they already haven't. Shame on you and those before you that have put our county in this position. Public safety should be priority number one over the other non-mandated county services. Yet it appears it wasn't during the budgeting process. Many successful business owners and operators in this county are scratching their heads on many decisions that are being made, knowing full well that if they made such decisions, their businesses would be failing or would have already failed. This isn't the only financial issue that our county is facing. Many residents are extremely upset over the approach being taken on the renovation of the current county building due to extremely low levels of asbestos being found. And according to the data, it fell within legal limits. I'm not discounting the importance of health and safety of individuals that work in the building, but every individual that I know who works in the field of dealing with issues such as this have talked of other options to address it at a substantially lower cost. These are contractors within our area that have dealt with asbestos abatement for decades. Many questions come to mind as I think about all this. And I'm just going to put these questions out there for you guys, for everybody to ponder themselves. How many residents know that according to the last census data, Isabella County, Michigan ranks 28 out of 82 counties in the state of Michigan and 832nd out of 3,221 counties in the country as far as property taxes being paid. That puts our county in the top 34% and top 26% nationwide. So we're at the top of the taxes paid, but can't afford to keep our deputies employed. Why is the county building so important now, this year, when the Isabella County Campus Facility Feasibility and Renovation Study dated December 2016 indicates many of the same concerns as the most recent study? Not saying something shouldn't have been done, but why now when it was known back in 2016? Why doesn't the county wait a year or two in regard to the county building? Even at the $300,000 annual rental cost currently being incurred as put out there, publicized, the county still would be substantially further ahead by waiting and let interest rates lower before moving forward at a tune of potentially close to $2 million saved over the term. $2 million of taxpayer dollars. Why is the board so desperate to hire a new administrator before the newly elected board members take their positions? Being this close, wouldn't it be wise to have their input? To regain public trust, would it not be wise to make a hire as an individual from outside their area and outsider community for a fresh set of eyes and new input? Why are we now seeing via an article in the Morning Sun stating that some of the funds for the county building renovations will be put towards renovations on the current sheriff's department and offices? I just seen that today in an article posted by Morning Sun. Maybe I misread it, but that's the way it leads people to believe. Why have previous concerns and warnings brought forth to the commissioner board over the past decade or so, from what I've been told, fallen on deaf ears? Warning that we would be in this situation. Much of this has been stated by many residents here, but the point of restating it is to make sure everybody knows that it's not just one individual's thoughts or opinions, it's all of ours. In closing, it has previously been stated that the residents of this county have elected this board to make the decisions on our behalf. That is true, but look where that has gotten us. We need better. You must do better. The trust and faith has been lost and is now gone. Thank you.
Please don't do a deal with the devil. Good evening, commissioners, county staff, and other concerned residents. I had a longer discussion prepared before, but it mostly provided facts around problems that I think pretty much everyone in the county already knows. In the past, my facts have not led to any useful outcome in the board, so I'll skip them in this case and focus on 5 suggestions for improvement, as well as a request to our new administrator. First, the county building. Our county has a history of rushing into decisions. We rushed into a $41 million jail loan because we felt pressure to lock in a low interest rate. We rushed into a full abatement and complete interior tear down of the county building because we feared possible future unsafe levels of asbestos. We rushed into a hostage millage proposal, terminating our entire road patrol less than a year after a general millage increase was turned down. We cannot continue rushing into decisions. The points Commissioner Jalazinski and Commissioner Hope made in the last Finance Committee about making sure the storage was on the right level, making sure it made sense to spend $1.8 million to retrofit the old jail for storage, those are valid questions, valid things that we need to wait and understand. The facts of many department heads are not happy with the proposed county building layouts. Those are also valid things that we need to take time to go through. Please do not rush into a 30-year, $11 million loan costing the county $750,000 a year until we make sure that it makes sense. Saw the meeting. The building advisors and builders are trying to rush you. That's their job, telling you that you're increasing the cost of the project by $50,000 a month by waiting. That's strictly speculation based on estimated future inflation that might be right or might be wrong. What is for sure is that you're going to go from $250,000 to $300,000 a year of rent to $750,000 of a yearly loan payment. So by not going forward with that and staying with rent, we're saving $400,000 to $500,000 a year of cash flow by renting instead of remodeling. And let's be honest, most of what we spend on that remodel is not going to last 30 years anyhow. Flooring, paint, HVAC, furniture, audio, video, none of that's going to last 30 years. The employees are not happy with the current crammed situation. I get it. But better that they're unhappy at the $250,000 to $300,000 a year of rent than being unhappy at $750,000 a year in a payment. I'd prefer that we rent for years and slowly make the building what it is that we want it to be, rather than rush into something that we later regret. Second, MRF. The MRF's running a $300,000 to $400,000 yearly deficit that the county operating budget has to pick up. Instead of working to get that under control, we've signed contracts with 7 to 8 other neighboring counties committing to take their recycled material under the hope that it will start to be profitable. I've not talked to a single person, including multiple on this board, who had confidence that we can spend millions of dollars on new recycling equipment, take 7 to 8 other neighboring counties' material, and make money on it. We hope we can. There's a study out there that shows it might be possible in a best case scenario, but this is not the time for our county to try something like that, especially when it could be a very expensive proposition. Third, healthcare costs. The county pays $8,000 to $25,000 per year per employee for the employee's healthcare premiums based on their selection of single, couple, or family status. The employees pay an additional 0%, 6%, or 12% premiums based on the plan they select. The state of Michigan passed a law that the government should not pay more than 80% or a fixed number of employee healthcare premiums to avoid overbearing healthcare costs on the government entity, which is the exact problem we've been having. Yet this board unanimously votes every year to be excluded from this law in order to pay more of the healthcare costs than the state law allows. At the same time, we have a wage study that shows some employees are underpaid. But of that 54-page wage study, only 2 pages consider benefits. And the extent of consideration for the healthcare benefits in that wage study is a checkbox that says medical insurance is provided. There's no consideration for what the county pays from premiums for that as compared to other comparable employers like CMU, the City of Mount Pleasant, or the Tribe. Please make the shared healthcare costs comparable to other employers in the area, and then take that savings and pass it on, if nothing else, as wage increases for a net zero to the county. At least in that way, our wage comparisons would be more comparable. Fourth, road patrol. Holding every single road patrol officer hostage for $3.7 million was crazy. It only made sense because of the assumption that voters would select safety over fiscal responsibility. Not a single other filled role in the county was cut, only open headcount. The wage study indicated that there were over 120 non-mandated roles, 65 mandated roles, so 125 non-mandated roles that could have been cut, in addition to other non-mandated contract services that have been mentioned, like hats, MRF, and others that could have been reduced to free up at least a little bit of budget, not just the 20 positions on the road patrol or 16 plus 4 headcount that were eliminated. Please be responsible. At least give the sheriff budget for some road patrol, even though I think most of them have already resigned. Maybe we can't, or maybe we shouldn't even fund 20 road patrol officers. I don't know what the number should be. But funding 0 road patrol officers because the voters wouldn't cough up an additional $3.7 million is irresponsible leadership. I'm not asking this out of concern for safety, and we actually run a mobile home park as well, but I'm not asking this out of concern for safety. I'm asking for this because it's the right and responsible thing to do. Fifth, there are many areas of our county government that seem to get little to no board supervision or oversight, even though it's this board that authorizes their taxation. This includes the Commission on Aging, the Medical Care Facility, Parks and Rec, and IRIDE. I have at least seen dialogue and representation from Commissioning on Aging and the Parks and Recs. I have seen no oversight at all for IRIDE or the Medical Care Facility. I'm not sure that even residents know that the Medical Care Facility taxes residents $1 million, which represents about $2.5 million a year of tax revenue. I have seen 0 discussion about how that money is being spent. Now, I'm pragmatic. I get that the board is part-time. I get that your salaries are $7,000. I get that you're stretched thin. But if someone is not digging into these areas, we will never see clearly to make wise decisions. I would propose an industry advisory committee comprised of non-employees who could review department budgets, income and expenses, and provide recommendations to the administrator and the board. I would personally be happy to sit on that committee. If you don't like me, that's fine. You can select from dozens of other qualified people in the county who also have a shared desire for fiscal responsibility in our government. Lastly, to Brian Smith, our new administrator, who I won't point out here, maybe doesn't want the attention, and I don't know him personally. I've never met him, but heard lots of good things about him. Brian, I say thank you. Thank you for volunteering to step into this very unpleasant situation. Most will probably not be as unfiltered as I am in my comments, but we all know how ugly the situation is that you are walking into. Let me be clear. We want you to succeed as much or more than you want to succeed. Please be open, transparent, and honest with us. There are many in this county who are uninformed, but there are also many in this county who are informed. We need to be able to trust our leaders, even if what we're hearing is not good news. I pray God's richest blessing on you and your family for taking on this task. You will need it, and our county will need it as well. Thank you.
Anyone else for general public comment? Okay, seeing no other general public comment. Right into committee reports, finance and administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our first item is consider ratifying and placing on file the November 1st, 2024 invoice list in the amount of $237,297.20. November 8th, 2024 invoice list, the amount of $1,849,726.56 in the adjustment list dated November 14, 2024. The first list cited, November 1st. We have quite a few people in the room, so I want to explain the process by which we receive and review the bills before we do a final approval, which will be tonight. Those bills come forward from elected officials' office or department heads that are appointed. They go through a review by county administration. They are sent to each of us at our homes by email Finally, they come before the Finance and Administration Committee for a preliminary committee meeting review. They come here at the work session, and then finally they come to the regular meeting, which will be at 7 o'clock tonight. So each invoice list consists of usually a pretty number of pages, but the big bills, the ones that are $5,000 or more, get put on the front so that we have direct attention to them. But we also then review all the smaller bills that are quite numerous in the rest of the packet. So looking at the November 1st, larger bills, most of these bills that come on here are very well known to us. We're making contractual payments with people that provide various services, and those contractual payments are sometimes biweekly, sometimes monthly. It varies. On all of these, the ones that stick out as the most is one was to AccuShare LLC is $23,968.12. That is for payment for 90-day prescriptions. We self-insured on prescription care to save money about a year ago. So this is a monthly payment to cover that. Another one is $22,700 to Dell Marketing. That's for 20 desktop computers for multiple departments. We get the replacement of computers over a periodic period of time so that we stay up with up-to-date equipment. We have public defender appointments. That's $5,500. We got Preston Community Services, $19,375. That's our monthly equalization contract. We used to do the equalization in-house, but we totally contracted out to save quite a few tens of thousands of dollars on the service. All the others that I look on here are ones that we've looked at many times before. I don't know if there's any questions on any of those from the members of the board or any of the background smaller bills. All right, moving on then to the November 8th. That was the list that had a few more dollars associated with it, a total of $1,849,726.56. The one that stands out on this one is a payment to Clark Construction of $1,487,361.75. And that's for the October construction charges for the new Sheriff's Office Correctional Facility. That work gets paid in increments as the work gets completed. And my understanding is that facility is about 93% complete at this point. The next largest bill is WellPath LLC, $48,260 is the payment for inmate medical services. Once somebody is incarcerated, the obligation to cover the medical costs for illnesses or any kind of disease or surgeries falls upon the county. It's one of those costs that you never know how it's going to turn out. Got $38,479.85 is October district and probate court transmittals, monies that we collect here, but then transmit out to the state of Michigan. All the others that as a look on here are again, our contractual services. They're smaller amounts that we pay on a periodic basis. Any questions on any of those remaining $5,000 plus or any of them in the background? The final list, it's called adjustment list. And these are adjustments to both of the previous invoice lists that I've just kind of gone through. And the changes are made after we receive them. And they're usually associated with early payment to get a discount. A lot of that is Commission on Aging and the Sheriff's Department. They buy from Gordon Foods or other vendors that if you pay at a certain time, you get a discount. So we take advantage of that by making those adjustments. And also there are some that we pay early to avoid a late fee. The payment schedule for some of our vendors is a little bit different than what the county's pay schedule is on. So we try to get those paid on time so we don't get charged a late fee. The only other exceptions to that is occasionally we'll find a bill that was had a mistake and had to be sent back to the vendor. That's very rare. Or every once in a while, periodically, we'll find a bill that includes sales tax. And the county is not subject to sales tax. So that would be a removal of the sales tax. Any questions on the adjustment list? Hearing none, Mr. Chairman, we'll then move that forward to tonight's meeting.
Second item for the Finance and Administration Committee is to consider approving the prime contract change order number 29 with Clark Construction in the net credit amount of $3,779. Authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. We, I believe, have our senior project manager, Heidi Heinz-Kindle, with us, I believe.
Good evening.
There she is. Good evening, ma'am.
As Mr. Embry had said, that the total of PCCO number 29 is a credit of $3,779. At this time, we had a buyout remaining of $36,647. And at this time, we have not touched our contingency yet. Total buyout and contingency is $818,421. We are about 93% complete, as Mr. Jerry Jahinski had mentioned, and we have about 37% complete based on where we are at with construction. I'm running down the PCCO in front of you, PCCO number 189. This one here is we removed allowances that we had in some of our site contractors' scope of work contract, and that was a deduct from McGurk of $36,602, and also removed it from Central Asphalt. We had an allowance of $5,000, and we removed that from them. We did move some of the money from these allowances to have our landscaper sweep the parking lots prior to doing the top coat of paving, and that was a cost of $3,507 to do that prior to them out there. And that is because we did do base, asphalt base down for the winter, just kept it a little easier to clean up. So we had less problems with snow and ice for any slip and falls, and it was a nice working surface to store materials and everything like that on. Moving down to the next item is PCO number 196. This is for the Willoughby management system. Once we got our transformers and CVCs with that system, and this is all the detention plumbing fixtures that go in area B in the intake area, and also in area C where the pods and the dorms are. We found that we did not have any power or data to these items, and so we needed to add that in order for the Willoughby system to operate and be able to take back to a computer in the master control area. This was an add of $31,455 to do this work, and that came from buyout. The next item on here is PCO number 198. In the kitchen, we had some exposed copper lines. Anywhere you have inmates, you cannot have exposed like plumbing or electrical conduit or anything like that. So these institutional covers are put in so that they're tamper-proof. They have security screws on there, and the inmates can't cut themselves or stash stuff in there. So this cost was to do that here was $2,235, and that came from buyout. The next item on our list is PCO number 201. Once we kind of got out there and kind of was working with a flooring contractor, and we had some sheet good vinyl that we were putting down like in the nurses station, and then also in the kitchen area. The cove base for that would not work very well with the rounded bullnose edges on the masonry. And so we needed to change out the base for that type of flooring. To make that change there, it was a credit of $701 and from deduct, and then an add for the vinyl base was $1,327. And so that was a deduct from buyout to then of $626. And the last item on the list here is PCO number 204. This is to extend our construction substantial completion date to January 31st of 2025. This is, we had some design changes that we had to make, which took a little longer than anticipated to get those items back. And in order to make those changes and meet schedule, we needed to push it out roughly about 25 days or so, give or take. We worked with the contractors to make sure that it did not take longer than that. So right now, our substantial completion date per contract, it would be January 31st of 2025. Is there any questions on this?
I know this is change order number 29. All of the change orders as they come forward are deducts or credits to the original budget for the construction of the sheriff's office correctional facility. And I know sometimes even in Facebook, we take hits for change orders. But the change orders, like I said, they can be one or the other. The last two ones were credits. And even the ones that had a added cost to the buyout are ones that probably had some credits in too. The good news is that the buyout, we still are above board on the change orders. We saved more money than gone in the other direction. And I can't remember the exact dollar amount that we still have left in buyout, but we haven't even touched the contingency, which is a significant amount of money. And I'm kind of pleased that we're 93% of the way through that project and we're still well under budget.
I couldn't hear Heidi very well, but I know you know the answer to this. What was the percent completion?
93. No. Any other? I do have a comment. I think this is very important to point out. We are 93% complete, and we have yet to touch contingency. We still have buyout left, with only 7% of the projects yet to be completed. And that is largely due to the efforts of the sheriff, his team, our facilities director, and I think they need to be acknowledged for the efforts that they put forward, and as well as Heidi Heinz-Kindle and her team. And we have Micah, like Mr. Ferber. Again, I appreciate everything you've done in this during the course of this project to help us keep this project under budget. So thank you, sir. And that's all I have. We have no other comments or questions. We'll move this item to our regular board session here in a little bit.
The next item is consider adopting the notice of intent bond resolution 2024-16, declaring official intent to issue limited tax obligation bonds for the Isabella County Administrative Building Complex Renovation Project in an amount not to exceed $11 million and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. Administrator Frost, would you like to take this, please?
Absolutely. So we do have some folks on the Zoom that are going to help us with this notice of intent resolution item. We've got Eric McLaughlin on. He's our bond counsel from Dickinson Wright. And Mr. Andy Campbell is here with us on Zoom. He's our financial advisor with Benzinski and Company. So these are the two gentlemen, two positions that help us through anytime we need to undergo a bond issue at the county. We need a separate financial advisor and bond counsel. They have legally separate duties and things that they're able to help us with. One of the first steps that we need to take if the county is going to borrow is what's called a notice of intent. This resolution is gives your approval to publish this notice. It sets the ceiling for the borrow. And what we're setting that at is $11 million. This is for the renovation of the Isabella County Administration Building. This, this notice of intent that's published, once it's published, it'll be in the Morning Sun as our paper of record that gives the voters a 45-day referendum period by which they can petition that the project be placed on the ballot, right? And this is the first step to any borrow that the county does. It doesn't lock the county in to into selling bonds, into taking this loan out, but it's the necessary first step if you're going to, right? And that 45-day period is there. You can't do anything before that. You have to let that period play out before you can take further action. Andy and Eric, how am I doing, and what am I missing?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mrs. Administrator Frost. Thank you for having me on. You have said all the things that I would have said about the resolution. It does set the ceiling for the maximum principal amount. The project description sets the outer boundaries for the things that can be paid for with bond proceeds. And yet it does not require the county to actually go forth and issue bonds. It's merely seeking to establish the authority under state law to do so at the proper time. If the resolution is adopted tonight, the notice of intent published and the referendum period is expired. At a later date, we will come back before you with a formal bond authorizing resolution that will establish the parameters within which the bonds can be sold to purchasers of the bonds. So it'll be a second step for the board to consider the issuance of the bonds. Again, this resolution does not authorize the issuance of any bonds. It merely authorizes the pursuit of the authority to do so under state law.
On the finance side, this is Andy Campbell. I just want to address there was one comment in the public comment. I just want to just kind of clear up a little bit about the finances. So it was correct to say that the current plan is to have $750,000 annual bond payments. And it is correct to say that the maximum term will be 30 years. We are currently estimating that the bond issue will be paid off in 25 years. We will size the bond in terms of the number of years, assuming that everything the county wants to move forward, obviously, but we will size the bond to the budget and cut off the number of bond payments whenever the budget is satisfied. So if we can get the $750,000 bond payments to pay off the bond in 25 years or 26 years or whatever that may be, that's what we're planning to do at this point. But it does allow in the resolution to go up to 30 years.
Loud and clear.
So my question to that is, we could still go the 30 years and have a lower bond payment, correct?
Correct. This would give the county the option to borrow $11 million over 30 years within the parameters of structuring bonds. So you could have lower bond payments and borrow for 30 years. You could do $750,000 bond payments and just cut off the debt whenever you can fit it into the bond payments. You can do a number of different things, but it does leave that option up to the County Board of Commissioners.
Okay, thank you.
You know, some people ask what's involved in the $11 million. And at this point, you know, we'll talk a little later in the meeting about the current budget, where that's at. We've heard a little bit in public comment about, you know, what we have Spicer exploring right now, and that is use of the existing sheriff's office and correctional facility. Does that make good financial sense? So as the board is working through what that will finally look like, and we ultimately down the road will tighten down that project budget. If it's over 11 million, you're spending cash, right, on the project to do that. This just is the amount we're borrowing. Just like the sheriff's office and correctional facility project is a $48 million project. We only borrowed from USDA $41.5 million, right? We had to put up some cash to match that. This will be the same if your project budget is over $11 million, obviously. We have talked about extra funds that we have to put towards this project. Not just the $11 million borrow, but we do have a little over $1 million in ARPA funds that you have obligated towards the HVAC system in this building that we can use. That's in addition to the $11 million that we will borrow. We also have two grants out to Eagle right now. One is $100,000. It could go towards heat pump in that facility. Another is $500,000 that would go towards further asbestos abatement of the building by removing the window films that contain that asbestos. So we do stand to have another $600,000 in grant money that could go towards this project, right? That kind of be over on our cash side, not necessarily the 11 million. If you kept the project budget under 11 million, then maybe those things could be used to borrow less, right? Again, this just sets that ceiling. All right, so it's okay that we're still working through project budget while at the same time publishing the notice of intent. Just wanted to make sure that why that is, it's not set in stone yet. The ARPA dollars certainly restricted, and those grant dollars absolutely are restricted. In addition to the $1 million of ARPA for HVAC, you've also got $150,000 of ARPA that you've earmarked for Board of Commissioner chamber audiovisual. So that can also be part of the renovation project costs.
So I'm going to make a comment. I know I've had some questions about this project, and I think they have been answered to my satisfaction. But I do know we have a number of elected officials, I don't know how many, department heads, I don't know how many, that are unhappy with the design. And we're looking to have to do this with $11 million, and any change of that design potentially is going to raise that cost to a point that we couldn't afford the project. And I guess at this point, I've heard some comments made in public comment that we should wait. I'm not sure that we should wait. We're in a sardine box on Pickard. People are crowded into offices. That's going to take a toll on those staff over time. They're not going to want to continue that. But I think until we have more of a consensus internally, I may be the only person that is going to vote no on this notice of intent, and a couple of the other items coming up, except one I do have some questions on. But it's just, my feeling is, even if it costs more, I think we need to have a project that everybody can buy into. Do we need to renovate that building? Absolutely. Was it the right choice to take that asbestos out instead of having people work underneath it? As pervasive as it was, everybody looks at the dollar amount. They value that over a person's personal health, whether that person is an employee in the building or is a visitor. Anytime somebody goes up into that ceiling, which is quite often to work on the HVAC system, to run telecommunications cable, to replace the light bulbs or drill in the wall, it's going to require, if we have not taking that asbestos out, it would require specialists in hazmat suits coming in, doing the work. Before that could be done, whichever office, they'd have to be moved out, and then air would have to be tested. How long that would take, I don't know, but that's not the way for county government to operate. We need to move on, but I think at this point, I'm going to vote no on this, only because I like to see a greater consensus to make sure that the project we do move ahead with is one that is acceptable to all. And if we can't move ahead, we're going to have to rent probably more expensive space to remedy our current issues.
I definitely agree with you. You. I definitely agree with you that if we don't move ahead, we have to reevaluate our rental space. I don't think that our employees can maintain services or that we'll keep those services, the employees in their current state right now. Moving forward with a notice, that still puts it out 45 days for us to continue to work with Spicer and department heads and elected officials. I mean, this is just a notice. It doesn't commit us to the bond by any means, but it does move the process forward and allows the public, if they want to bring it to a vote, to do that. I think needlessly delaying the notice does nothing other than delay.
Same thing I was going to talk about, but I think this is probably a good time. The commissioners need obviously good data and good information to make your decision, right? We've been talking about utilizing the existing sheriff's office and correctional facility because we're comparing the cost of about 1.7 million, I believe, to renovate that to the cost of 2.2 million to renovate and the additional third floor of the county building, right? And we're right now we're comparing those. Well, where the 2.2 million comes from is an estimate based on square footage, right? So Spence takes the square footage of the floor and says it'll probably be this much. And we've done that because we started out with, well, what would it be to do 3 floors and too expensive. Would it be cheaper to do the jail? Yes, it will. We've kind of been going down that path. But really, I think the information you need is a more solid cost estimate of what is the cost of finishing out 3 floors of the county building. In order to do that, Spence Brothers can put a cost to that, but it will be helpful if they get a floor plan to do so rather than just simple square footage, right? This makes sense. So I have talked to David Marr with Spicer about what's an avenue to do that. How much are we talking? I think the estimate, it's not fair, David's not on here, but we talked about probably in the neighborhood of 5, definitely less than $8,000 to do a floor plan utilizing all 3 floors. So I feel like this is the direction the board is heading because of comments you're hearing. Department heads electeds aren't happy with their spaces, with their smaller spaces. Maybe this would be a way to give a little more elbow room in that building. But right now, we're just looking at costs based on estimated square footage, not based on a floor plan and what might actually go on that 3rd finished floor, right? So if that, it sounds, we can handle this 2 ways. Spicer could bring forth a change order on the existing project, or we can make this a standalone project that I can direct at that $5,000 to $8,000 range, have them look into this. So kind of just would like to get your thoughts on that. It sounds like you're, Vice Chairman, asking for more solid numbers maybe. Look at.
We have an estimate, and I trust the contractors that we've hired. The fact that we can do this for the $11 million, maybe even less. By my voting no, and if this is the wish of the commission, if it goes down, this may be a very poor decision on my part, because that 350,000 could be mushroom right out. We're gonna spend our 750,000 on rental facilities and have nothing to show for it in the future. Those are the risks that we have to take. It just, again, I've had this feeling in my gut for a while that we needed more information, and even though I got information, I'm comfortable with it. I just don't know if this is the right plan at the right time. And so that's why I'll be voting no on this one.
want to make clear that this notice of intent doesn't lock us into a specific design. We're still able to look at that. And
Separate things.
I would, and I've been pushing to see a design that includes doing all 3 floors. We talked about white boxing 1 floor to save money. But then we're talking about using part of the existing sheriff's office correctional facility. And the part we're talking about using is that part closest to the admin building. It is all larger dormitory style
Asbestos
cells, which could be easily converted to storage space. And that's part of this plan, but I would like to see a plan. I'd like to see some numbers, some firmer numbers on using that lower level of the admin building for the storage, and then using the next 2 levels for the offices. We've got to put all the systems in that building, the electrical, the heat, all of the HVAC, all of that in that building. So I guess some firmer numbers on what that would look like would help us make that decision. This notice of intent doesn't keep us from pursuing that.
Nope. Does not.
Any other, go ahead.
Also in the meeting we had, with Spencer and Spicer Group, that they said themselves that these were estimates that they were making on, what are not engineered architectural plans. So they have said in meetings that these are estimates, and we need to move forward with architectural plans to get numbers, to make decisions on.
Any other? Commissioner Green?
Just curious as to whether or not Mr. Ferber would like to weigh in on this discussion at all.
Thank you. Basically, the 3 professionals, your architect, the potential CM, and myself, we all agree that the current suggestion, meaning utilizing the 1st and 2nd floor and parts of the existing building, would be the least expensive option. Now, is that the best as far as comfort and some other issues? No. What I sense as a resident and taxpayer, that right now there is this red flag that people may not understand, that the money comes from different sources. We're not robbing Peter to pay Paul, but that's not my expertise. We're not rushing. We went through all possible scenarios. We looked at all doing the 3rd floor, 2nd floor. There's no rushing here. It's evaluation, and the CMs doing their best. These are conservative numbers. I think to have an $11 million bond issue is definitely comfortable. I'm positive that we're gonna bring this project, if it goes ahead, within the parameters of the budget. We don't have to worry about an overrun. We'll make sure that it will come in within budget. The politics part of it, I have to stay out. Of course, I have my opinion, but that's beside the point. I can answer technical questions if you have them. And I agree with the bond experts that probably you be able to pay off the bond in less than 30 years. I think I would even venture, based on Nicole's comments about the potential money you hold, that we don't even need 11 million. based on the fact that the money we have for the HVAC, we could even go for a $10 million bond. But again, that's just my opinion.
I do have a follow-up, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yep.
For the public, introduction, past relationship, current relationship.
Madam Administrator, I want to turn that over to you. Do that for me, please.
Sure.
So that everybody knows.
Yes, I introduced Andy and Eric. I didn't know that Miklos would be speaking on the topic, but on the Zoom, we also have our volunteer owners rep, Miklos Ferber. So thank you for jumping in there, Mike. We appreciate it.
So I do have a follow-up for Mr.
Go ahead.
Ferber.
Go ahead.
At our most recent Finance Committee meeting, you and your expertise, our representative from Spicer and our representative from Spence Brothers, we did have a conversation about this idea of going to the 3 floors and not doing anything with the sheriff's office. Now, initially, we decided that we would use the sheriff's office in order to save money, in order to be able to get this project done under $11 million. Is that correct? That's what you
Yes.
So what is your opinion? What is your expert opinion on what it's going to cost to do the 3 floors?
I don't think the $11 million bond issue will cover that cost. Again, it's an opinion at this point. But we had, when I get involved with the project, actually we had 2.5 floors finished. The lower floor, second floor, and half of the third floor. And when we saw that, the opinion was that if we do that, it will not be within the perimeters of the available monies. And that's why the cutback of leaving the third floor completely out and try to do the program in 2 floors and using some of the existing building as support areas for storage and for maintenance functions. So we were, the initial design took up 2.5 floors, meaning the lower, middle, and half of the third floor. There was no need to finish the entire third floor, but half of it. And without knowing the impact of inflation and when this project would go ahead, we recommended the conservative approach, which would cost the least. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to accept that as a commission, but again, what I just heard from the sidelines here with spending money and the public safety issues, you're gonna get a lot of flack if you're not gonna go with the least expensive option. Again, it's just my opinion, but to go with 3 floors, we're gonna spend more money. Even if we go with 2.5 floors, we're gonna spend more money. Nicole mentioned the differential between the 1.7 and the 2.2. Again, I have a difference of opinion with the construction manager. In my opinion, from what I've seen, the 1.7 million is way too high for the recommended renovation in the existing building. Way too high. I think we can do something for $1 million. Again, I'm throwing numbers out just to give you an idea of relative expenses. I think we can do much less than the $1.7 million. I don't see where that $1.7 million comes from. We're just doing some basic alterations there, very little. Yes, there is some mechanical and electrical, but I don't see $1.7 million there.
Thank you, Mr. Ferber.
Yes.
Your time, sir. So again, I want to kind of draw this to a concise statement for the other members of the board that haven't been dealing with this for the last year plus. Now I've been accused of saying that we're going to do this is trying to do the cheap way. Well, I can tell you this, that based on the information that I have from Mr. Ferber and from our experts, this gives us the best opportunity to get our county administration back up and running the most cost-effective and cost-efficient way. This isn't being cheap. This is doing it in a cost-effective way and spending the least amount of tax dollars possible to get this job done. Going beyond this, and I understand there are electeds and department heads who are not happy with the size of their offices. I understand that. That's not what they're used to. But I think it's time to start thinking smaller scale. We're not a county flush with money. We're not going to be even back to square one for 5 to 6 years. So I think it's time for people to realize that we need to try to do this as cost effectively as possible. Right now, it is as presented by the architects and the engineers at the recommendation of both and Mr. Ferber. So that's where I stand.
Further discussion on this issue?
Yeah, I just want to add, I appreciate your comments, Commissioner Embry. I guess I would just like to see some firmer numbers before, we're not making that decision tonight.
Nope.
I would like a little more information and a little bit more time before we do make that decision. And have a better idea what the actual costs might be.
Very good. Additional discussion? Mr. Chairman, we'll move that on to final consideration at tonight's meeting.
Okay. Item 4 for the Finance and Administration Committee is to consider approving the engagement letter with Bedzinski and Company Municipal Finance Advisors for the Isabella County Administration Building Complex Renovation Project. Authorize the board chair to sign the same. I believe we have someone here with us to speak on that, Madam Administrator.
So Andy Campbell was on, I know he sent me an email earlier. Anyone emails on board day, please understand, I generally don't see it. He has another meeting. He had to hop off, but I can certainly speak to, their engagement letter is in your packet, and as we talked about in committee, the costs of financial advisor are rolled into the bond issuance. The cost for financial advisor is a flat fee of $37,850 on the $11 million bond. It's not that we have to write them a check for that or pay them that at closing. That is generally rolled into the bond proceeds unless we want to pay it outside of those bond proceeds. We would have that option. Any questions?
Straight it, that's it. Thank you, madam. All right, hearing none, we'll move this item on to our meeting tonight.
Our next item, consider approving engagement letter with Dickinson Wright PLLC for the Isabella County Administrative Building Complex Renovation Project and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. So this is legal counsel for that bond issue?
It is. Eric McLaughlin is still on with us. So this is the engagement letter with Dickinson Wright. Their fees are structured a little differently than financial advisor. So the way that Dickinson Wright has this structured is that there's an amount, a $20,000 fee for the first 2 million. And then after that, it's 1/4% beyond the 2 million. So it'd be 1/4% on the 9 million. So add that 22.5 to the 20,000, and the estimated cost for legal counsel on this bond issue is $42,500 plus expenses not to exceed $500. Mr. McLaughlin, would you care to speak to any of that or clarify?
Again, Ms. Frost, you've explained it exactly as it should be explained. My fees would be paid out of bond proceeds at bond closing and not before. So I won't be sending the county monthly bills. It's just we complete the work with the bond issue. The bonds are issued and delivered to the purchaser, and our bills presented at that time. And if the amount is less than 11 million, then it would the fee would go down in proportion according to the schedule.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? So I know the last two are professionals, consultants that we need to have on any kind of projects like that. We don't have that kind of talent in-house, and it's a very complicated process, and so that's why we have the final counsel advisor and the legal firm. Hearing no further questions, we'll move this on to final consideration tonight.
Good. Thank you, Eric. If you're still there, thank you very much, sir. Item 6 is to consider entering into a contract for construction management services with Spence Brothers for the Isabella County Administration Building Complex Renovation Project, and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. So we've kind of touched on this already in prior items for the Finance and Administration Committee. So I don't know where we want to take this at this point. It sounds like we're all over the board, and I don't know if we've got any general consensus as to where we need to go. I don't know if this is something we might even want to consider tabling for now.
Just a question, does this make payment to Spence Brothers for work that's already been done, or for additional work?
So this contract spells out how additional work would be handled and what their fee would be on the additional work, whether it's $11 million project, a $12 million, $10 million project. It sets their fee as a percentage. And so that once you square the design down and the project costs are known, that will come forward as a change order to this contract if you approve this contract, right? If you remember with Clark Construction on the Sheriff's Office and Correctional Facility, I think the first contract was maybe for $1 million, and then one of the very first change orders was setting that guaranteed maximum price at the 43 million with Clark.
If I understand it correctly, what it does do is set that construction management fee, though.
That is correct.
Correct. And personally, I would like a little more time to negotiate that.
Yep. Great.
I do want to say, it is the board's and my responsibility to negotiate that with Spence. I know in the finance committee, we kind of said, okay, owner's rep, you've supplied us information. How about you negotiate that percent for us, right? And that's inappropriate. As much as we adore Mr. Ferber, we've not given him an ounce of authority to negotiate in that regard, right? He has knowledge, skills, and abilities we don't maintain in-house, and he helps to recommend best course of action to us. So it's our responsibility to take that information and work with the vendor, right? So I just want to make sure we don't throw Mr. Ferber to the, just don't throw him out there.
Right. I mean, he needs to maintain a relationship with the construction manager and the architect.
Right.
And so we don't want to put him in a delicate
That's really ours.
a delicate position. Mr. Ferber is doing this for the county at no cost. He's retired. When he isn't working for the food pantry, he helps us out with some projects. Greatly appreciate that, sir.
Thank you.
And it should be noted that Mr. Ferber was the architect on staff or on contract for this particular facility. So he's very knowledgeable, and it's been a blessing to have him as a volunteer construction.
Thank you. Not an architect. I was working with George Green in very similar position that I'm doing for you now.
I stand corrected. Thank you. Still.
Guess the question becomes, where do we want to go? Do we want to move forward with this construction management service agreement? Understanding that, again, we haven't completely 100% come to a decision on the design. What would
Well,
be-
I feel like I should probably answer the rest of your question. You asked if this was for services provided or services yet to be provided. So really the answer is both. The dollars that you'll see in this contract right now is the dollar figure that Spence Brothers has put on their pre-construction services that they've provided us already. An amount of $26,500.
Right.
The services going forward are spelled out in here as a percent basis, and Mr. Ferber has shared some thoughts with us in that regard. I believe Brian Keeler from Spence Brothers is on the Zoom now. Him and I did have recent discussions, and in the spirit of negotiating, you know, he is willing to come to the table and did talk about maybe sharing in the contingency if that is left at the end of the project. It kind of motivates him to save money along with us, right? Although they would do that by shaving off some of that percentage, although it's not necessarily clear what a share of the contingency might afford them back. If we were to take part of their fee, would that afford that all back to them or maybe more? So it's not yet negotiated, certainly, and from what I'm hearing, maybe won't be
So there
tonight.
would be an avenue moving forward if we don't approve this contract tonight to make our relationship with Spence Brothers whole for their pre-design work without having to hold the bag for something they've already done.
I believe regardless of, because the work has been performed by Spence Brothers, I believe whether the board approves this contract or not, we would still be on the hook
Right.
to pay Spence Brothers the 26.5 if that's what you're asking. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, and that we'd have a way to pay for it with another contract moving forward, if this doesn't go through tonight. At some point, maybe it's another meeting.
And then procedurally, my question would be, should we move it forward to the regular session and table it there if that's our intent? Or just not move it?
I guess we could do either.
Either.
Just not move it forward now.
And then if you were to table this, would your intent be to meet with Spence Brothers, myself, maybe those commissioners on the renovation committee to
Absolutely.
Work through that contract
Yep.
conversation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
with the hope maybe of bringing it forward next round?
Yep.
Gentlemen, commissioners, any other thoughts on that?
I would not move it forward.
Okay. Someone? Commissioner Marino,
Yeah, it sounds like we need more time. I'm in favor of that.
lock in the numbers a little better before
Yeah.
we move forward?
Well, I think just for respect of the new administrator coming in and the new commissioners coming in, it's just the proper thing to do.
Agreed. All right. Any other comments? Hearing none, then we will not move that item to our.
With that said,
Yep.
there's so many things that we do here that gets kicked down the road. And it's a fine line of looking and trying to save and save rent, save this, save that. It's a complicated thing, so.
Very, very true. All right. All right, so then we'll move on then.
Next item. Consider approving the proposed First Amendment to the lease agreement with MRP Properties and Company and LLC commencing December 1st, 2024, and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. So we've been renting two buildings on Pickard Street to house a number of our county departments, elected officials' office. It was done with the thought maybe we could come to a solution in a year, which didn't materialize. So even if we move ahead with a construction project, it's going to be at least another year. So we need to renew that particular lease, which I think has been offered at a 3% inflationary increase. So the other thing to keep in mind is we do have agreement with another landlord that houses our prosecuting attorney's office. So eventually we'll have to deal with that. So we are looking at real costs and renting space, and it's really substandard space for operating inefficiently. But I give credit to elected officials and staff. They've been doing a good job. Maybe we're not offering all the services, but they have held the county together in this difficult period. Are there questions or comments on this First Amendment to the lease? Madam Administrator, is there anything you wish to add?
Did perfectly. No.
Background noise, not.
To compete with.
Hearing none, we'll move this on to final consideration for tonight's meeting.
Final item for the Finance and Administration Committee is to consider approving the software as a service agreement between Rever Inc. and Isabella County in the total amount of $1,710 for personal document storage software for a one-year period beginning October 1st, or October 27th, 2024 to October 26th, 2025. And I know Director Ray came in and spoke with us at Finance. She is a firm believer in moving this forward as a board item, and we had a discussion about whether or not we wanted to make it a department head decision. She feels that we need to make sure that it comes through.
Attorney makes us
Yes.
make it a board
board,
decision
okay.
because there's terms and
Conditions. Correct.
service
Okay.
agreement. Mhm. But what this software is it's our HR software. It's what we keep electronic personnel files in for all of our staff.
Payroll.
Yes, sir. Payroll and HR. We buy 3 seats, one for finance director, one for the HR specialist, and one for the payroll clerk, because all 3 positions need to have access to the personnel records.
Provides the necessary security so that that information stays private.
So we approved this in the budget for October 1st. And it's certainly under the $5,000. It doesn't have to come to the board. We set that standard. So the department heads, we've been pushing for department heads to have more control. And I would say that there's terms and agreement on every small item, and I don't agree that this board legally needs to do terms and agreement for a software unless that terms and agreement would incite monetary, like we have to pay more money for X. That would be, I would say, where if terms and agreement changes the amount of money for certain conditions, that would be a Board of Commissioners vote. If there's no change in monetary, it's just terms and agreement, you use our software right, you don't use more than 3 users. Those agreements are on everything. And I would say that if we need to do that agreement, terms and agreement, we're going to see 120 service agreements throughout the year of under $5,000. I know we have a lot of software out there with the clerks, the deeds, IT. I don't see this as a policy that we need to move forward This is the first time that we've seen this. And so I would give pushback to this. It's not that I don't want to do the work. I don't want to force the department heads to come to a meeting, both on, last Tuesday and this Tuesday for $1,000 software that we know we have to have for our services for our constituents, for a terms and agreement saying we're not going to use more than 3 people to use the software. Okay, it's a waste of their time.
And it's already budgeted for.
It's already budgeted for.
I agree. I think we need to look at a policy dealing with these smaller contracts. Nothing that can be done now with our current administrator. It's almost out the door, but when we get our new administrator in, having been in Parks and Recreation in this county for 13 years, I know there's contracts dealing with trash pickup in the parks, and it goes on and on and on. It's not only cumbersome to have to keep coming to us with these smaller amounts, especially if it's budgeted, but it creates a lot more headaches for the department head because they got to think about this well in advance. And what happens if you miss and you're opening up the parks and you haven't done this? It's just, we need to simplify it and take these very nondescript contracts by policy and consider them a different way.
Gentlemen, any other conversation?
That said, I'll, approve the software.
Hearing no other comments, we'll move this item to our regular board session here shortly.
Mr. Chairman, our Finance Administration Committee meeting portion of the agenda is complete for this.
Thank you, commissioners. And that brings us to Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
All right, first up, consider approving the amendment of the purchase of service agreement to revise the MIPPA purchase of service agreement dated I'm a whole page ahead and not even on my committee. All right, sorry. First, consider approving the lease agreement between Broadway Land Management LLC and Isabella County for a 1-year term beginning November 19th through November 18th, 2025, pending legal review, and authorize board chairperson to sign. All right, this is for the lease agreement for the prosecutor attorney's office. I don't know if the prosecutor Barbary wants to speak to it or not. He's here. Nope. Okay. Simple renewal of the lease for the next year for that group. Its renewal lease will be $3,570 a month for 1 year.
So again, this gets back into renting these temporary spaces instead of bringing people back into the administration building. The concern that I have in the back of my mind is I remember reading a article in the Morning Sun indicating that the owners of the old Isabella Bank administration building are looking at converting that into apartment space, and I don't know how it's going to affect the space that we house our prosecuting attorney, but at some point, someone's going to go ahead and move ahead with the development that could displace a very important function of the county if we don't have an alternate. And it's one of those spaces that it's not quite as easy to find replacements for because of need for additional sensitivity and confidentiality.
Security.
I just wanted to speak on that issue. I appreciate that question, Jerry. I did reach out to the landlord after that city council meeting where they had the approval, and he indicated that it wouldn't have any impact on our space, at least for the next calendar year, that they're looking at that. Having the grant would pertain to the area that would be on University and Broadway, and we're on the west side of that, or I'm sorry, the east side of that. So it won't affect 210, it would only affect 200. Okay. Sorry, I don't know if that was clear, but we did reach out to the landlord on that issue, and they ensured that it would not affect our space at all. It would only affect 200 East Broadway, not 210, which we're renting.
Thank you.
And I guess for clarity, I think, I want to say that our lease is for $40,000 annually, and we know that it's an additional expense to the county. Our thought process, at least for now, Commissioner Swaney brought up a good point in the meeting regarding the redesign of the building. I have 42 days left in office. I don't want to speak for my successor, but the idea of staying put until we're able to do the right thing, in my opinion, and finish that building properly, would be something that we would certainly consider. It would be something I would consider to play the long game, so to speak. The space is not ideal, but it's manageable, and we're working through it. So.
Thank you.
That, if you wanted, the exact amount is $42,840 for the year. All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move that forward. Thank you. All right, next up, consider approving the letter to the Village of Lake Isabella, which provides the necessary 30-day notice termination of the agreement for public safety services and authorized board chairperson sign the same. Thank you. Talking Sheriff Maine.
These two things that you have coming up in the agenda are contracts that we have with Wise Township and the Village of Lake Isabella that provide some extra law enforcement coverage in those areas. Part of that agreement is if any one party decides to terminate, it's a 30-day notice. They have been good partners, as all of our townships and township officials have been good partners. We definitely want to give that to them. We'll hold on to it December 31st, 2024, but we do want to provide them that notice.
Any questions on this item? Yep.
I did read the article. It indicated that of the 16 officers remaining on staff, that 13 have accepted other employment. Are you going to be able to have enough personnel to cover for these contracts to the end of the year?
Several of them will be waiting up till the end of the year. Yes, so they'll be here until the first of the year. Some will start their new positions, but others will stay here until that time.
Thank you.
I have a question. Yeah, sure. Has any township suggested helping out by making a new contract?
I've had some conversations with a couple. The results of the election, every township said no except for one. So I'm sure their boards are not going to go against what those township residents have voted. They've made a statement. So I wouldn't expect them to say, okay, if it didn't work here, we'll try it a different way. So I don't hold much hope for that.
All right, if there are no further questions, we'll move on to the next item. Consider approving the letter to Wise Township, which provides the necessary 30-day notice of termination of the agreement for public safety services. And authorize board chairperson to sign the same.
Actually, the same comments that I had in the last. Good partners. We just owe them the courtesy of the 30-day notice and to get it out to them.
All right, we'll move those two items on to tonight. Thank you, Sheriff. And with that, that ends the work of criminal justice and county affairs.
Thank you, Commissioner Swaney. And that brings us to Human Resources and Public Works. Remember that that third item has been removed from the agenda.
Thanks. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Okay. Our item is consider approving the amendment of the purchase of service agreement to revise the MIPPA purchase of service agreement dated September 1st,
somewhere before
January 31st, 2025 between the Michigan Medicare Medicaid Assistance Program and Isabella County Commission on Aging, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. We have Jennifer Crawford, the director of the Commission on Aging, here to break this down for us. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi there. So probably about a month ago, I brought this agreement to you for fiscal year 25. This agreement is with MAP, which is Michigan Medicare Assistance Program. So we have 4 MAP trained counselors here at Commission on Aging who assist older adults with completing the very difficult, confusing Medicare applications. And specifically with this one, this program allows us to receive reimbursement if we help individuals complete specific applications for lower income subsidies to help them save money on some of their applications. So we do have the agreement for fiscal year 25, but we found out at the end of last month that the program is actually ending at the state level. So they have an amendment to the agreement, which is this right here, which is saying now instead of going through August 31st, 2025, it's actually ending January 31st, 2025. It always has the caveat that or until funds are exhausted, because it's a pool of money that organizations throughout the state can then submit for reimbursements for. Last year, we received $3,650 for the work for these applications. But know that right now we're knee deep and we're neck deep in Part D sign up. So our facility is swamped, and our staff are helping individuals like crazy with Medicare open enrollment, helping individuals with applications to the point where we have waiting lists, and we're still helping them. We will continue to help them even if this program is ending. This is just something that we do, we're very passionate about, and we're able to assist a lot of individuals in our community for this. They are putting out an RFP for this though, so hopefully it will continue at some level. My hope is maybe our coordinating agency that we work through, who we receive training through for this program, will maybe pick it up. But irregardless, this will still continue here for sure.
I have a question. Is there any possibility that something will be done about this in lame duck?
That I'm not sure. I think they've already released the RFP, so they're hoping for an organization to take it on.
Okay.
At this point.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this topic?
Just another worthy program that you just don't see, and it's well needed.
It's a really confusing and difficult process that's scary, and man, we have experts here and they help so many people. Very, very proud of them for doing that.
Okay, then this will be on our agenda and at the next meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Second item, consider approving the grant agreement between Michigan Arts and Culture Council, MAC, and Isabel County, accepting terms of the Mount Pleasant Area Community Foundation for the 2025 Art from Our Park event funds in the amount of $3,000. Authorize the board chair to sign the same. And Alexis Hansen reported to us last week. I don't know if she's there tonight.
There she is. She's
Yep, I am here online. I don't have the greatest connection, but I'm here. Happy to answer any questions.
Well, this is a program that we've had for several, do you know how many years we've done this now?
Around 20 years. I mean, this has been going on for I think this might even be the 21st year.
Well, I just want to reach out and thank the Mount Pleasant Area Community Foundation. It just seems like this program keeps growing every year, and it's a nice event they have towards the end of the summer, and we have a lot of participants show up at the park.
Thanks for that. I do want to make one little caveat. So last year we did get our funding from Mount Pleasant Area Community Foundation. Typically, and this next year also, this funding comes from Michigan Arts and Culture Council. So yes, definitely grateful to the Community Foundation, but huge thanks to the Michigan Arts and Culture Council for funding in past years and this upcoming year.
Thank you. Any questions? That being said, we'll move it forward to tonight's meeting.
That completes the work of the Human Resources and Public Works Committee, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, commissioners, and that will bring us down again to general public comments. as you come up, remember to sign in, and there is a 3-minute limit that I don't adhere to too strictly, but I won't let folks go on forever, so that's fine.
Can you hear me? Is it working? Okay. I would like to discuss the Wise Township letter here. We have our board meeting this Thursday. Could we get you guys to hold off on canceling us until the next meeting? Which is what, 2 weeks away? That way we can decide whether we want to extend this. The sheriff said it costs around $150,000 to $200,000 per deputy. We're already, I think, budgeted for $137,000 if we need to for our township. That wouldn't be that much more. So if you would hold off and for until 2 weeks from now to decide whether you're going to cancel us or not, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening again. Tonight, as I listened to all of you, one of the things that really stuck out to me is when it was said, we need to use the best opportunity in the most effective way. You're kidding me, right? The best opportunity in the most effective way from the board that took our money, abated a building with safe levels of asbestos, and then went on to bid a company that decided all of the walls also needed to be removed. And then I hear somebody up here say that we don't want to ruin or potentially harm the relationship with Spence Brothers, the company that's doing this. I have a question. Does somebody up here have a relationship with somebody that works for Spence Brothers? And that's a legitimate question. I also have a few other questions. Actually, you know what? Before I give you my other questions, I want to point something out to all of you. I heard you all sit up here and discuss and talk about tabling an item to go to a different meeting. Just to clarify, and I'm sure you can all check me to see if I'm wrong, but you don't actually table an item to another meeting. You actually need to postpone that and choose the date in which you will postpone it for, which is also going to be very important because these people back here might want to know when that's going to be postponed to. The other questions that I have, what is this building right now? This building that we are sitting in, what is it being used for on a daily, regular basis? What is this being used for? And is this entire building occupied? Because if not, right there's some space you can all think about when you postpone to future dates some discussion that needs to take place. Discussion about the use of our money, the overuse. You know, I'm going to say it this way. You know what you all handed us? You handed us a turd. You gave us the turd in the overspending on the sheriff's building. You gave us another one with the abatement. Now you're giving us another one because you want $11.5 million of our money when you just let go of the safety in our county. It doesn't matter how much you polish a turd, guys. It is still a turd. We don't want any more of them. Thank you.
Anyone else for general public comment? Being no one else for general, yes, sir.
Sorry, don't have a pen. My name's John Jones. I'm relatively new to the county. Just for the record, I did vote yes for the millage that would have kept the police force in place. And so, I'm sure there's a lot of, there just seems to be a lot of rancor in this room. But that doesn't change the bottom line that, surprisingly enough, I never thought I would have lived in a county where the police got defunded. It's kind of shocking. And really, I know, my dad told me one time, he said, anytime you point your finger at someone and say it's their fault, or, you know, look at your hand, there's like 3 fingers pointing back at you. And I don't know, some of you may have done the things that it sounded like you were accused of. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Typically the truth kind of lays somewhere in between. And I guess I would just encourage the board and the community, because the community, I believe, elected all of you. I wasn't around at the time that probably some of you were elected, but I think, like I remember seeing Frank Engler's name on the ballot. So the public elects you, and the public decides what millages they're going to vote for. And so really, it kind of gets back to the public, and we all kind of need to work together and to figure this out, because defunding the police, I'm sorry, but that's just not a workable long-term solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Pretty much after listening to you guys speak and listening to what people said to you before, I'm still feeling you are either unable to or refusing to listen to what the taxpayers want. We told you months ago, we want our police. You didn't listen. So then you threatened us, and we told you in the vote, don't threaten us. But tonight at this meeting, you spent how long? An hour and a half talking about a building that we didn't want you to dismantle in the first place. But have you talked about our police? No. You need to start listening to us. Yeah, they're overcrowded. That's too bad. I don't mean to be bold to them, but they have a job. What about our police that don't have a job because you people took it away from them, because you didn't find that our safety was at all important? None. This building also was built under the assumption if anything went wrong, they could use this building for our county people. If they're crowded, put some in here that don't need security. You people need to start using common sense. It's like you have none. Oh, it could cost us $1,000 to do this, so let's spend $1 million. Come on, people. You need better finances. We're not hearing any of this. And like somebody mentioned, who's related to who? Because that sure did cost a whole lot more money than necessary, and why you have to do it right now. They're perfectly fine. Everybody's got their jobs. Like I said, start worrying about our police. There's money somewhere. I've asked personally 3 times for an outside audit. We want to know where every single penny's going, because you people are doing something somewhere. Thank you.
Hi, Lee Clark again. I just wanted to bring something up. One of our committee members was curious if the board has considered asking county employees to work remotely instead of being crammed into such a limited space, and if maybe moving some employees to remote work would be a feasible option. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Brown. First of all, I would like to thank our officers. We appreciate you and everything that you do for us. Guys, not so much. It was your responsibility to make sure that this never happened. You failed. You failed us and you failed them. Shame on you. Our tax money goes to make sure that we are protected and those people have a job. And you guys did something wrong somewhere. And it's your job to fix it. At some point, there has to be the option to have a special election to make sure that this stops now. Because there's no reason for it. We told you guys several times in our elections that we did not want the fat that you put in that millage. And you did not listen. And so therefore, we are where we are. And again, shame on you. You thought you could squeeze it in there when you basically threatened us, if you don't vote for this, you're going to lose your police. And you found out that that's not what happened. Fix it, guys.
Good evening, everyone. You know me, I like to come prepared with a prepared speech. I'm not like everybody else and just say what's on the top of my head. So I'm just going to go with what I have here, okay? None of us here have walked a mile in your shoes. Many people support you and recognize your struggles at trying to do what's right. However, we cannot minimize the reality that your actions have alarming consequences and have caused this community a great deal of animosity and outrage. It is your mistake, your miscalculations that have caused the community of Isabella County to lose their protection of the road patrol. This is not the fault of the voters who turned down the millage. People just can't afford it. They distrust our county leadership. And then there's the wording on the ballot itself, which described that a portion of the millage may be dispersed elsewhere, which is very misleading. There have been many decisions made by this board that will have negative consequences to Isabella County for decades to come that also need this community's attention. There are plans underway for Isabella County to absorb trash and recycling from several counties. How will this affect Mount Pleasant? Another approved project is solar panels on farmland. The advancement of solar projects on farmland will wind up covering thousands of acres by the time the energy companies are done. It is a poor use of a valuable resource and goes against the main theme in Isabella County's master plan, which emphasizes the integrity of the farming of crops. I believe that the decision to approve the DTE project was decided before there was a public hearing. I find this very deceptive, especially to the non-participating residents that came here crying and upset that they were going to have solar panels butting up to 3 sides of their property. Since this board approved the Mission Road solar project, maybe you could partially fund the road patrol with the money from the county that the county gets from DTE. At least then the community will benefit from it. We all face challenges and experiences in our day-to-day lives, but most of us only have to be held accountable to ourselves, our family, or our workplace. You are public figures and are responsible for the decisions that affect this county. Therefore, you are subjected to more criticism and outrage when things go wrong. How you handle this criticism will prove your moral character. To the community in this room and those listening, we need to be more diligent and be aware of what is happening in our community by attending these meetings and speaking out. I didn't wake up one day and think to myself, I think I'll go speak in public today. It's not very fun. I was compelled to be here. If you are compelled to be here today, then you have something to say. If you have not spoken up yet, come up and let your voices be heard. If I can do it, anybody can. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rob Hooker. I'm a retired police officer, sheriff's deputy, and police chief and marshal. I spent almost 40 years in law enforcement. I started my career with the Isabella County Sheriff's Department under Don Gillis. My question today is, how did we never have a problem like this in all the time I was here? We always had a budget. We always had the funds available. We didn't have pork going in on election issues. Sheriff's Department has nothing to do with Mount Pleasant downtown development. That's extra money that could have gone to Sheriff Maine. And kept that department going. It's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money, but right now, I'm going to talk to Mike for just a second because he's a friend. Every penny counts right now, doesn't it, Mike? Okay, I want to see if you can help me clarify one of my old memories. And it's for the audience here to get a little education if I'm still correct. State law in Michigan requires that a sheriff's department be in each county for the purpose of running the jail and running the court services. Is that correct? Road patrol is not in the mandate under state law. It's an option by the local jurisdictions. It's an option we've had for 100 years, one way or another, back to the Henry Craven days and before. We've got an excellent department here. They've been let down. And I think the rejection of the bill was not a rejection actually of the deputies or of the sheriff. It was of some mismanagement, some lack of transparency, some lack of responsibility that came maybe through the board, maybe through some other areas. But I would stand to my dying day with a law enforcement officer. If it's in you, it is in you forever. I would like to see you come up with some sort of way, some legitimate way to provide funding to keep this sheriff's department running. I don't think it needs to be downsized or defunded at all. Our county is still growing a little bit. So we need the help. And most of us live in outlying areas. I think we were fortunate in Sherman Township to have the township provide for its own police department. And I understand that Shepherd, the village of Shepherd, is doing co-township as a contract like we did Sherman Township. So we have some people that are still interested in it. Like I said, I would do it today, but 77 years old is a little too old to be pushing a police car around. Was the young lady that spoke, was that Bree Moggenberg? Maybe. I want to commend you. I want to thank you very much for your input. I don't know how much value my input is, but we need to have cops. Got to have them. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Joshua Scott. I'm currently renting here in town, upper 20s. I want to start with thanking the deputy and sheriff's office, and that's where it stops. And now, personally, I can speak as a young person who's done some stupid things. I've been pulled over by the road patrol for doing stupid things, and I don't like that. But that's the reality, right? When you do stupid things, you get in trouble. And I think that should be the case for everyone. But I haven't been in a situation where I've needed something outside of hitting an animal and needing the road patrol to come help me, or being in trouble for driving recklessly, doing stupid things, which is also important, right? We need to keep that in control. But can't speak for how the people feel that require the road patrol for things outside of that. For people that have imminent dangers, imminent things that require their service. For me, I would rather risk still doing stupid things every once in a while and getting caught and facing the consequences for doing that, if that means supporting having a road patrol out there. Because long story short is, if I get caught for doing something stupid, it is my own fault. And I know a lot of other young people like me, we hear all the things that people got away with in the older generations. And that is past times, right? It would be great if that was still there. It's not the case. So even though how much I wish there was more leniency, and in a way this provides, if there's not road patrol out there, it provides more leniency in that, but I don't think that's fair for the safety of everybody. Safety should be put first in front of everything else that the commission is doing, right? Your first responsibility is for the safety of the people that you are managing funds for, you're managing the county that we live in. Thank you.
My name's Dave Livermore. I'm Fire Chief, Nottawa Sherman Fire Department. In the back of the room, you have some volunteer firemen that are here to show support for Mike Main and the undersheriff and all the men that work under them. They do a phenomenal job. They're our backside. We volunteer to make rescue calls in the middle of the night to help anybody. Sometimes it's somebody that's overdosed. We give them their Narcan. They come up fighting. You know who's there to protect us? Those guys. You guys all sit here and make all kinds of decisions on spending $11 million to renovate a building. My day job is I work construction. We've worked around this asbestos all our lives. There's proper ways to do it. And the levels at our county level, we're below an elementary level for elementary school kids to go to school. I don't know where it all started or how it all exploded. You guys know them details, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you everything everybody already has. What I'm telling you is there's over 100 volunteer firemen in this community that need these sheriff's deputies. We went on a call a week ago, right after the election, and we need an officer, 4 hours. We're volunteers. We don't do this to get rich. It's not our day job. And to have a family have a deceased person laying in their living room for 4 hours waiting for that officer is uncalled for. That is morally wrong. We need to fix this. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know if you want to spend $700,000 a year on a mortgage or pay $700,000 a year for deputies. I know what I would do. The fact is, brought up the fact that this building right here, I don't know how it's used daily. Shame on me because I'm a taxpayer. I should know all this. But the fact is, there's a big room here and they can make office petitions every day. And if somebody's uncomfortable in their office, too bad. We're all uncomfortable because we don't have a road patrol. They save our lives. I don't know where you can come up with the funding or how you do it, but it's your responsibility. We put you here for that reason. I don't know, like I said, I don't know where you're going to do it. And I'll be very honest. I don't care what you take away from somebody else. Road patrol saves lives. Look at Montcalm County. Montcalm County over 25% increase the first year when they lost their road patrol of deceased accidents. That's a lot of people dying on the roads because we don't have road patrol. I know that road patrol isn't out there always patrolling the roads. They have a million other jobs to do. And one of them is to help us. And we really appreciate it. And the people that we go rescue really appreciate it when a deputy walks in the door in a time of need. We don't have that ability anymore. We had an accident a week ago. We got 4 state troopers. And the first thing they told us, don't get used to it because we're not always going to be here. So I don't know how you're going to explain it to everybody. And I don't know where the liability lies. All I know is as volunteer firemen, and there's over 100 of them in the county, we need road patrol.
Thank you.
Evening. My name is Lynette Mungar. I stand before you today as a public servant who wears 2 hats. I work at the Isabella County Jail as a corrections deputy, and I also serve as a medical examiner investigator for the county. Both roles are deeply tied to public safety, and both are directly impacted by your mismanagement of funds. Mismanagement that has cost this county its road patrol deputies. The loss of these deputies isn't just a line item on a budget. It's a blow to the safety and the security of every resident in Isabella County. As someone who works at the jail, I see the ripple effects firsthand. A lack of road patrol means fewer offenders are apprehended, fewer cases are resolved, and ultimately, more strain is already placed on an overburdened system. As a medical examiner investigator, I know what happens when public safety is compromised. There will be tragedies that could have been prevented because we needed stronger law enforcement presence. I do not want to see families shattered and lives lost, all because corners were cut, priorities were misplaced, and funds were mismanaged. You were entrusted with the responsibility to lead, to budget wisely, and to ensure this county's safety. Instead, your decisions have left deputies off the roads and the public vulnerable. This is not just a policy failure, it is a moral failure. I urge you to take immediate and meaningful action to correct this. The people of Isabella County deserve accountability, transparency, and most importantly, a safe community. It's time to prioritize the well-being of the citizens over your bureaucratic missteps. Thank you.
Hey there, my name is Brian Chapman. I had no intentions of sharing today, but I think back to, I wear a couple different hats in our community. Me and my wife own a mental health clinic in town, and my wife is the lead clinical psychologist for community mental health. And I think back to September 12th, 2023. There were many instances where one of my best friends and business partners had to call a suicide hotline, and the people that showed up at his house in Union Township were sheriff's deputies. And on September 12th, 2023, he killed himself in his house. And the people that showed up were the sheriff's deputies. And along with the city police, along with the state police, along with the SWAT team, and to know that our society understands the mental health crisis in a way that needs to be responded to, but we don't value it enough to. Community Mental Health of Central Michigan uses the sheriff's department very frequently. And, we talk about the things how we spend money. And in my personal budget, we talk about what we can afford and what we can't afford. And the truth is, we afford what we choose to afford. With our time and with our money, we choose what we afford. It's not whether or not we can't afford it. It's whether or not we're going to choose to afford it. And with the state of people in our community, with the state of the mental health crisis in our community, where normal people that we think have normal lives are struggling, and we're not choosing to afford. Forget the crime. Everybody's talked about crime, but the reality is, when there's so many people in our community struggling with mental health, and there's not many community mental health workers that can respond to 911 emergencies because of mental health emergencies. That's not how it works. If there's a mental health emergency, it's often a police officer that's responding to that. And so I think, how many people, maybe not in the city limits, we have a wonderful police agency in the city of Mount Pleasant, but my neighbors, my friend lived a half a mile out of town. And there were 3 times where the sheriff's department showed up because he was struggling. And now what happens to those people? You know, and maybe it obviously with my friend wasn't prevented, but there were so many times where the sheriff's deputy was there to step in the time where he was struggling. And now we don't have that, because what it comes down to is we're choosing not to afford it. That's it. We're choosing not to afford it. And I just wonder how many people in our community are going to be struggling, but not have the answer for that struggle. And so I don't know the solution, but I know that we're choosing how we afford the funds that are given to us through taxes. And if our choice is not to support that need, then that's the choice that our community has to live with and we have to deal with. Thanks.
Good evening, commissioners. I've come before you before when we tried to save our deputies. I come before you again, just as Brian just said. I too have a firsthand experience with the deputies, and more than just one, including the sheriff. My daughter at 4 days old stopped breathing. The first ones to respond were the sheriff's department. She had a couple more incidences where she did the same. And again, it was deputies from the sheriff's department. I was involved in an accident 7.5 years ago. I was in critical condition. I was very lucky. But again, the first one to arrive on the border of Isabella County was Officer Morgenberg from the sheriff's department. I don't live in town. I don't have the city police. Most of us don't have the city police. My daughter suffers from seizures. I now live in fear that she could have a seizure and not get the help that she needs. She had a seizure a couple months after my accident, and Sheriff Maine luckily was the first one on scene. Just as others have said, we didn't get to this position because we didn't pay our taxes. It's from those who have mismanaged our money. Those of you who have sat on this board year after year after year. I think it's an honor to have been on the board. We ask you, where's our money? Where's our money to fund the road patrol? We have lost some amazing men because of mismanagement and greed from this board. I've watched and been here for several meetings. And it's unfortunate there's only one member on this board who I've seen get emotional
and seems to even care about what's happening to our road deputies. I don't have the solution. I've looked at the budget. I've tried to find a way. This has hit home for my family, as my husband is close with a lot of these officers. But I say to you, this is your problem, and you guys need to find a fix.
Good evening, Jason Marshall, 41, a dad, husband, got 3 kids, 7, 6, and 5. I am just up here just as another tally of someone showing that they are in favor of the police. I don't know all the history. Just got to make it work. We need police. It's that simple. Thank you for your time.
Really hard to sit out here and hear all the stories. You people, your priorities are obviously wrong. County parks, asbestos abatement, that should be a low priority compared to public safety. Three times you asked for your millage, you finally got it. Same millage that you kept on asking for. The general fund funded the road patrol. You got that money. You got it approved. And then you came back at us asking for more money to fund road patrol. You really think that we're a bunch of fools? There are people in this county that live on a very limited income. Now, when we lose our coverage and something happens out in the county, out in the townships, domestic violence, overdose, mental health problems, the sheriff responded. He's not going to be there. How are you people going to feel when somebody dies for lack of response? Are you morally fit to hold your office when you think that parts and rights are more important than public safety? I've only lived in this county for 7 years. I'm ashamed of our government because of how you've behaved. I'm shaking. I am pissed.
Evening. I think myself personally, all us people out here lost trust. They have lost in you guys. Example, we build what they call a prison, jail, Taj Mahal, wherever you want. $1 billion spent. Everybody raise their hand, voted for it. Voted for it. Pardon? That's right, sure. You didn't spend that much money. You couldn't get comfortable for it. We can have a failure. They're putting in a recycling center. Contract's already been signed. Am I correct? Did we get to vote on it? No. You got 6 counties coming in here that's gonna be driving in here with their semis and whatever. 6 other counties are coming in here. We already got a transportation problem from what we can hear and see, the curb cuts we need to be putting in and things like that. So, do we gonna get the vote of that? No, that's already been through. You're lobbyists. You got lobbyists, probably, that lobbied for everything that's went through. You got people out here that want their vote, and we deserve that vote. I hope you guys don't go bankrupt. Thank you.
Wasn't planning on addressing you. My name is Jean Beatty. I've been a resident of this county for 60 years. I guess you can guess I was raised here. I'm concerned that we feel like we can just dispense of public safety. As one person said, I don't live in the city. I don't have city police. I live in the country. I rely on the sheriff and the deputies. I'm not trying to point fingers. I do believe there was some mismanagement of funds from somewhere. I don't understand all of your processes, although I'm an educated person. I believe we voted this down, not because we don't want police coverage, but because we don't want to be bullied. I believe you're trying to put forth a bond for $11 million for a building. And I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure as a taxpayer, I'm going to be paying for that $11 million. Really, if you're going to take money from me, let's get our police force back. But I don't think you can use the bond money to pay for the police force because it's already been voted down. So I think that maybe another solution needs to be addressed. We need police. We have health care. People are entitled to health care, so they say, but we should also be entitled to having public safety.
Hi, my name's Shireen Jones, and I've been in the county for 30-something years. And I really will admit right up front that I am not totally familiar with your budgeting and how funds are allocated, and so I don't know how much of this is directed to you as opposed to the people behind me. What I hear is people asking for accountability and transparency and honesty. And what I saw driving down Bluegrass, driving down 20, driving down Broomfield was sign after sign after sign that misrepresented what a tax increase would entail to the taxpayers. And so if you want to demand accountability from this group and you want to demand honesty from this group, I think it needs to start back here and start wondering about the signs you're putting in your yard and what impact those have. Thank you.
So my name is Sue Hahn. I'm a medical provider here in town. I own a medical practice and I could reiterate everything that's been said since I got here at 7, but it doesn't really need to be. I think you guys realize that the safety affects everything of whether it's healthcare, concerns going into the home, which the sheriff's departments are always there to help out people, but it affects everything. So we've heard that. I think we need to move forward and try to figure out we can't be the only county that's landed into a mess like this. And so I don't know like who you guys have where you can have resources to look beyond your own, means of what you've already done. Because obviously we've hit a wall from what I think you guys are able to do on your own, but trying to look above that and figure out who can help, whether it's the governor or whoever it is. But I think that, in the county, there's going to be quite a upheaval. I think this is just a fraction of the people that knew about the meeting today. So again, I think that it's your due diligence to try to go above and beyond and try to figure out who is out there that can help bring some resolution to keep the county safe. Thank you.
My name is Brenton Holbrook, and I'm angry. But before I get into that, I'd like to thank the sheriff and the undersheriff and their staff for what they do for us as a community. So on behalf of myself, if you could share that with your staff and your officers, I'd be much appreciated. I've been a resident of Isabella County for only 3 years, and it's been a wonderful place to live and raise my family. But when I sat in the voting booth the other day and was deciding which circle to fill in, I was conflicted. You see, my entire life has been about serving my fellow citizens, local and nationwide. If you couldn't tell from the hoodie that I'm wearing, I'm a veteran of the United States Navy. I served for 6 years on active duty as a hospital corpsman, a medic. I've had the pleasure of being part of medical support for counterterrorism and anti-piracy task forces in the Middle East, supporting Navy SEALs and the rest of our forward deployed military. Furthermore, I have many friends and family members who are public safety servants, ranging from state police and DNR officers to my brother, a former firefighter of a department in Kent County. When I realized as a young kid how important public safety was, watching my brother come home with the lasting wounds of responding from calls, I made a vow to myself that I would always vote in favor of anything my local police, fire, and EMS needed. At the same time, even in the short time that I've been a resident of Isabella County, I'm angry at what I've witnessed. I'm angry with the mismanagement of funds, and I'm especially angry at being threatened with losing my protection and the protection of my community. It is unconscionable the decision that you forced me to make in the voting booth 2 weeks ago. I voted yes, but I'm still angry at the fact that your actions almost made me violate the vow that I made to myself. I can't speak for everyone behind me. I can only speak for myself. But I think it's clear the mandate that you've been handed by us. Road patrol is a necessity. No more excuses, no more special millages, no more discussion. Get it done. Thank you.
Anyone else for general public comment?
But, yeah. I know we need to get to those next meetings, but I wasn't gonna say anything tonight, but, a couple things I want to talk about. One, thank you to everybody behind us for coming in, showing up, supporting. I started reading a book here a while back about leadership. I am the sheriff. It is my responsibility for those men. It is my responsibility for the safety of this community. I solely take that on, no one else. I say that because we had an opportunity. You gave us an opportunity to put this on the ballot. There are only so many dollars out there. We know that. Those audits that people ask about, those are on the website. They're independent external auditors every year. The failure, and I've heard it since, I've heard it during, I've heard it after, and I've heard it tonight. So much information that's just confused people, and that's my failure. The DDA, the TIF, all those things that were in that millage language was one of the biggest things I've heard. That is a state law legislatively put there. We do not have an option. That has to be there. I did not communicate that well enough to the folks out there in our community. That committee that stood up, and I call them a ragtag group. I met with them multiple times, but I'll tell you what, they are the phenomenal group. They went out there and talked to thousands of people, and they corrected a lot of people and said, no, that's not true. This is why, this is the information. But we still failed. We have a lot of work to do. I don't know when this comes back up. I don't know if it's 6 months, year and a half, 2 years. We can look at the history of other counties. We know the failures. We know how long it took. We know what it takes to rebuild. But I just wanted, the main reason I'm standing here or sitting here today talking is because everybody behind me, when it comes time to do this again, to fix this problem, there's no magical dollars there, folks. And I don't know. It's just the reality of inflation and the cost of stuff. And I can give you the horror stories of the costs of my office, the things that have went up, not by hundreds, but by thousands of dollars. I'm not going to say everything was perfect along the way. Maybe there was some mistakes made. Maybe there wasn't. I don't know. But I'm going to need everybody behind me and in front of me when it's time to do this again, because we had over 51% of our community say no. And we have to give them the information to hopefully make a different change when that comes out. I don't know if we can. I don't know when that time is. I don't know how that's going to work out. But there is so much information out there that I failed to provide to this community. And for that, I'm sorry. Thank you.
When you ask if there is any further people that wanted to speak, I raised my hand, but I guess you didn't see me right away. My name is David Sumbach. I'm 76 years old. I have lived in this county for all but about 15 years of my life. It's a beautiful county. I have never in my life felt unsafe in this county, but I do now. But it's going to be the response time. If I need help, what is it now? You people see this, you know this. This did not come about overnight. This has been coming on for years. You're responsible for the budgets. What the hell? What have you done? Why don't you listen? in the bill that was set forth there that we were supposed to vote on. I only live on Social Security. I can't afford shit. But yet I voted for the increase. I voted for it, knowing dang well that part of it is going to go to the Downtown Development Association. What the hell does that have to do with supporting our police? Why can't you put out a clean bill if you need more money? I have seen this country change so tremendously in my 76 years. And unfortunately, I don't believe for the better. But I do believe that each and every one of you has seen this coming. But yet you've done nothing. It's about time, if you pardon my French, that you get up off of your asses and figure something out. I don't want to get belligerent, so I will leave it at that and just tell you folks, you better get something figured out and danged awful quick. Because I have a CPL license. And if somebody comes through my door and I don't know them and they mean me harm, you're going to have to be calling the coroner. It's as simple as that. And if you get rid of the road patrols, you're going to have more possibility of break-ins, more possibility of thefts. Criminals aren't stupid. If you haven't got anybody around, they're going to take advantage of it. And they're going to be taking advantage of us and possibly of you. So I hope you feel safe in your homes. Because like I said, I don't in mine anymore. Thank you.
Hello there. I'm not much on public speaking, but here I am. I'm going to elaborate on what my husband said a little earlier. I've been wondering ever since we voted on that 6.6, okay? You guys, we got that, okay? It passed. I want to know why the 1 point whatever didn't get separated out from that. What did you do with that money? That was for the road patrol, for the sheriff's department. What happened to it? People were thinking you're double dipping. And that's exactly what happened. Now, you're going to have to be accountable for that money. And we want to know what happened to it. Okay? You didn't divide it out. You just got a renewal, which provided for them all them years on the operating budget. Can you tell me what happened to it? No, you're not going to answer me because I know you can't. Okay? It's went to these little old pet projects, whatever, something that really doesn't matter. I sat here and I heard, oh, these people don't like the size of their office. Well, to hell with them, you know? They can just, I don't care, go put up a trailer somewhere for them, you know? What's more important? I've said that I've lived in this county for 20 years. I've never seen nothing like this. You guys, something's got to happen. But let me tell you something. Leave you with this. You're going to have blood on your hands. Seriously. If somebody dies because of this, I don't know if they can sue the county, whatever, but they can sue each and every one of you. Okay? That's just gonna be it, because there's gonna be things happening where the police can't respond. And that's gonna be in you guys' hand. I know you're probably getting tired, you want to go to McDonald's, hey. But you got to prioritize this. You know, something's got to happen. Something's got to give. Okay?
Good evening. My name is Teresa Kyle. I just want to ask, I've heard everybody talk. You guys have grandkids? You got kids? Ask my mate how many times he goes to our school. All I gotta say, school shootings are real.
Anyone else?
My understanding from listening to what little bit I heard before I came in, or once I came in, it's my understanding that you guys are getting ready to vote on whether to approve the funds for the contamination of the asbestos in the old building and all that kind of stuff. Am I wrong? You are getting ready to vote on that, is that right? You're not. Okay. What was the approval for then? Oh, the notice. Okay. So used, and probably some of the people out here, the asbestos in the old courthouse that's costing us all of this money. What is the reason it has to be done right now? Why can't that courthouse sit there until we can afford to actually fix it or demolish it? And it sounds like at this point, it's going to be cheaper to demolish it than to fix it. And why can't that money go towards funding our police? That's a lot of money. Why is that building more important than public safety? Is that something you can explain to us? Thank you.
My name is Shelley Bryant. I have been in Shepherd for 31 years. I can tell you, I don't think you're bad people. I don't know what's going on. These are our friends and what we consider our family. All that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. Do something.
I apologize. I really don't want to do this. I know we've gone long, but I feel obligated by some of the comments here. There's a lot of people that have talked about the road patrol, and I get that. I love our sheriff as well. There's been a lot of comments that I don't know what the budget is, and even by the sheriff that, you know, there's just not a lot of budget. But I am a budget guy and I am a numbers guy. And so I want to review a few things with you. Maybe more for the people behind me. 2024 was fiscal year. 2024 was a shockingly bad financial year for the county with expenses that were 40% higher than 2023, which led to a $5 million deficit. All of this is on the website if you download the current budget. I've heard this blamed on rising healthcare costs, unexpected MERS costs, and new jail costs. The initial response from the Board of Commissioners was not to cut expenses. That was not what we initially went to do. Instead of February 24, 2024, which is when I started watching this, the first thing the board did was ask the voters for an additional 2.5 mils or $6 million for continuing operating expenses. When the voters turned this down, the county responded with a public letter saying, quote, "Isabella County voters, we have heard your voice, all caps, loud and clear, and Isabella County will become a much leaner government based on the results of the February 27th election." This was in February 28th of 2024. However, in spite of that statement, in spite of the statements of the board about cutting budgets to the bone, we did not make substantial cuts to the expenses. And I know that's going to be disputed here, but let me defend it with a few facts. 2024, as I said, was a year of extraordinary spending, 40% higher than 2023. So let's ignore that anomaly for just a minute and compare 2023 to our approved and accepted budget for 2025 to see how much we actually slashed in 2025. For the functional areas of the government, from 2023 to 2025, the legislative function increased 11%. The judicial increased 5%. The general government increased 9%. The community development increased 30%. Public works increased 17%. Health and welfare increased 5%. The only thing that did not increase was other financing, which was flat, largely because in 2023 and 2024, we had $2.4 million of jail construction, not part of the $40 million loan, which was mentioned today. And also public safety, which obviously took a hit, only 20% actually. If the board proposed road patrol millage had passed, if the voters had approved that, even with all the other cuts, which we've said were extensive, there would have still been a 12% increase in total county expenses from 2023 to 2026, basically 6% per year, which is higher than the inflation rate. At the same time, our tax revenues from 2023 to 2025 increased 11.5%, which is not bad. Mine increased about 100%. There has been much tax about these so-called extensive cuts. However, other than the road patrol, not a single one filled position in the county was eliminated. Almost 20 road patrol employees were set for termination, and there were about 10 other headcount that were open headcount across the rest of the county were cut. I asked a couple months ago about a list of all the extensive cuts. I was told the list would be provided. I've still not seen it. The facts tell me that while 2025 does represent a slight tightening of the belt, which I would love to see every year, it's far from extensive cuts to expenses. While I'd stop short of accusing the board of impropriety, there are several items that have come up along the way that have made me question the board. The 2025 budget included the entire road patrol for 3 months. If you don't know that, our fiscal year ended, I think, the end of September, so we funded them for 3 months so that we could vote on this. That 3-month funding was $550,000. Multiply that out by 4 for basically a year, and it would infer that the cost of our road patrol was $2.2 million. The millage request, though, was $3.7 million, which was more than 50% over the actual cost of the road patrol. Now, some of this excess was due to the sharing with the City Development Fund. I know a lot of you guys don't know this. They didn't have a choice in that. That's a requirement. It's part of the law that new millages come. It sucks, but it's the way that it is. There really was nothing they could do about it other than find the budget some other way. There were also some things that were double counted, MERS, so we still had to pay out benefit to the road control whether we laid them off or not. But there was still a lot of excess. The best answer that I ever got for the additional excess, talking to various people, was buffer. Now, going from actuals of $2.2 million a year for road patrol to $3.7 million a year for road patrol is a lot of buffer. even if you love the road patrol, and I do love the road patrol and Sheriff Maine more than any of them. Much has been made about the zero-based budget, as it was supposedly extensive cuttings are starting from zero. For those of you who are not familiar with the county's redefinition of this term, a zero-based budget to most people means that income equals expenses. There's zero at the bottom of the two. However, the county has redefined this term to mean only starting with mandated services. This was then spent to imply that nearly all the services other than the road patrol were mandated. The Finance Committee even had discussions about tiny expenses like $100 subscriptions to Commission of, or the Council of Governments and things like that, as if every other non-mandated expense in the county had been cut. However, as I mentioned earlier today, page 9 of the Wade study indicates that 65 positions, about 35% of the org, were actually mandated, and the remaining 120 were not mandated. And there's a couple groups that didn't report, but those are basically the correct numbers. Of those 120 non-mandated positions, 20 were cut of live people. That was all the road patrol. To say or imply that the 2025 budget started with only mandated positions is just flat wrong, or at least disingenuous. There was also a lot of talk about how the county would try to increase our millages well before the February 2024 failure. Some people had told me that we had contracted with PR firms to advise on what the best way was to get an additional millage passed. Some people also indicated to me that maybe we talked to the firms, but we didn't contract with them to figure out how they could best get the millage passed. I'm going to assume that's true and we didn't contract to them. But in any case, the general perception was the best way to get Isabella County to pay more money to the county was a millage that was attached to public safety. Why? Because people appreciate safety more than anything. When the first general millage increase failed, it was not long at all before road patrol was magically cut from the county operating budget and a public safety millage was proposed. To me, and this might be a stretch, I don't mean to make it that way, but I think it's the case, it seemed like a hostage situation. You voters give me $3.7 million or we will terminate the entire road patrol. The U.S. government has strict policies about what they'll do when they're put in situations like the Isabella County voters were put in. The U.S. government, quote, will not make concessions to individuals or groups holding office or private U.S. citizens hostage. Government policy to deny hostage takers the benefits of a ransom or other acts of concession. Much to my surprise, and I believe the board's surprise, the Isabella County voters do not pay for hostages either, even if we love them dearly. A primary reason, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to come up here, there's talk about there's going to be another millage, let's pass the next millage. A primary reason that the U.S. government will not pay for hostages is it basically encourages that practice. And it's not hard to see how that could happen for this county as well. Remember, I know a lot of you don't look at the budget. I do look at the budget. If things go the way that they're planned, we're starting 2025 already in the hole $500,000 because we took $500,000 of the future principal payment for the county building. We removed it to use it for something else. That's going to increase our expenses in 2026 by $500,000. There's also been no cost of living increases for our employees who all want that and many on the board want to give it. Also, based on the attraction of the county's healthcare coverage with minimum premiums, we should expect a substantial jump in 2026, just like we saw in 2025. In 2025, it increased 20%. We found a way to get it down to 10%. It's going to increase in 2026. So listen to this, please. If the road patrol millage had passed, what would we have seen in 2026? Do we have the budget in control? Would there be another multi-million-dollar budget? Because now we can't afford the prosecuting attorney's office. So we're going to lose 13 of their heads, everyone other than the mandated prosecuting attorney himself. Or what about another millage? We can't afford the court staff. So we're going to have another millage or we're going to lose our court. Now we're going to have another millage for the MRF. It sounds like many of you know we're starting to take from all the other counties. I don't think it's a stretch to see that as the place forward if the board determines that that's a way that they can increase the funding. Just look at the facts. In less than 12 months, there have been 2 millage increase requests. Another thing that has discouraged me is shell games with money. For those of you who are unaware, the county was given $10 million of ARPA funds for COVID relief. Personally, I think that's a large part of our problem. But there were restrictions on these funds such that they could not be used for jails, they could not be used for nonprofits. But tell me, what did we use those funds for? We paid $7 million for jail construction in 2023 and 2024 that was not covered by the $41 million loan. We paid an additional $50,000 more than we had originally budgeted for hats, which was a nonprofit. To the best of my understanding, these two things were effectively paid for by ARPA funds. Now, that would be illegal to do that. So to make it legal, we use the ARPA funds for employee wages, and then we use the excess revenue from employee wages to pay for these expenses that the ARPA funds could not be used for. There is even a discussion on the public record of this being a shell game, and not a single person on the board pushed back on that. I don't know for a fact where the budget came for the jail funds. I think that's where it came from. I do know for a fact, and it's on public record, that the hats $50,000 came from ARPA through the wages. It's all public. Everyone should have seen that if they've been watching it. We talked about the county building. I think in hindsight, we all know there were less nuclear options we could have pursued, but we made rush decisions, moved people out even though the air quality was acceptable levels, then told them to get back in and get their stuff out. We allowed others to be convinced that it was an emergency, and we ended up tearing things back to the studs for a complete rebuild. I get it, it's spilt milk. We can't fix that part, but we have to learn from it and not rush into extreme decisions going forward. There are places, to several of the points that have been put, where expenses could be cut that would not affect county employees. If you read the budget, the county general fund provides $2.158 million, a shockingly close number to what we used to pay for road patrol, for other county programs and services like GIS, Friend of the Court, Law Library, Child Care Fund, MRF, Indigent Defense, Community Corrections, Community Mental Health, and Central Michigan District Health Department. Do I want to lose all of them? No, but I think we've talked about what's more important. I have heard no discussion on cutting any of these, not even partial cuts. So in closing, per our Board of Commissioners website, the primary responsibility of the Board of Commissioners is the development and administration of the annual budget. As part of their fiscal responsibilities, the Board of Commissioners are responsible for developing policies and procedures to maintain public accountability and internal controls. This board is comprised of 4 Republicans and 3 Democrats. I want to tread here carefully, but this partisan discussion has come up recently in public manner. And while I do not intend to get partisan, and the platforms of the parties are constantly shifting, there has been one thing since 1920 that has been consistent theme of the Republican platform: fiscal conservatism. It's a theme that I believe the voters of Isabella County have echoed in the last 2 millage increase failures. I can only recall 2 non-unanimous votes on this board in the almost 12 months that I've been watching it carefully. Both of them were recent regarding the HATS funding, and both of them were a single dissenting vote. I've heard intelligent people refer to it as groupthink. We only need one board of commissioners because everybody votes the same. Everything other than those that I recall has been unanimous, from the initial request for $6 million in increased millage, to holding the road patrol hostage for 3.7, to approving the 2025 budgets with expenses that are all higher than 2023, to approving shell games with ARPA funds, to skipping principal payments on future loans, to excluding the county from state law restricting maximum health payments. All were unanimous votes. Fellow citizens, fellow board, fellow Republicans, for those of you fit in that category, this is not fiscal conservatism. While I do not condone the more aggressive tactics of some current Republicans, even those in this room, though I respect their ability to do that, I cannot deny that their tactics have replaced 50% of the Republicans on this board and have greatly frustrated the remaining 2 Republicans, while my moderate, controlled approach of trying to educate myself, trying to propose ways to be more fiscally conservative, has done absolutely nothing to change the direction of the board or the county. If there are any true fiscal conservatives on this board, whether Republican or Democrat, now is the time to serve your county by reducing expenditures without defunding the police. If you want this job, with all its associated low pay, long hours, and ranting by our citizens and hard work, please do the job with excellence. If you do not want the job, please make room for someone who will do the job with excellence. May God bless you, our county, our state, our country, and our world. Thank you.
I'm going to close public comment right there. That will bring us to announcements. Commissioners, any announcements? I just want to say one thing. There's one person in this room that I appreciate. I appreciate all of you, but him probably more than anyone else. And Sheriff Maine, this was not your failure. You did everything you could. I've seen you work since I've been on this board, work hard at managing your budget, trying to be responsible. You've done an excellent job, and you did everything you could to try to get this millage passed. So please don't feel that this was your failure. That's it. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
8:16. We'll start the regular session shortly. I imagine it'll take a while. Got a lot of people that